I want to speak to the Georgia fans for a second. To all you guys that are complaining about people in sports media not giving Georgia a legitimate shot to repeat, or the ones who are saying they're the biggest one-hit wonder since Milli Vanilli, you should be rejoicing instead of complaining for a few reasons. First off, you finally got off the schneid. You took home the title for the first time in 40 years. You should also know, and I know you do, at this point, the way Kirby stacked recruiting class on recruiting class and the way the culture's been developed, Georgia's here to stay for a while. But the biggest reason you should be happy about the disrespect is that it feeds right into what Kirby wants to use as motivation for 2022. Now, we already know Coach Smart is a master motivator. Anybody that disputes that, you're just flat out wrong. But now he doesn't have to go searching for tackling fuel or try to reinvent a way to get his team as focused as they were last year. The lack of respect some are putting on Georgia's name is the perfect hangover cure. Now, Kirby has already and will continue to use that to push this team to become the best version of themselves. Now, this year's team is going to be a little bit of a different flavor than last year. The defense is going to be really good, but asking for a repeat of 2021's dominance with all the guys they lost to the NFL is pretty unfair. But the offense will be more explosive than last year by leaps and bounds. Just trust me. I know they lost James Cook and Pickens and Jermaine Burton went to Bama, but the patchwork that Todd Monken did last year with all the injuries led him to be more conservative than Jim Jordan and Matt Gates combined because they had to. Now, we know Ladd McConkey and Adonai Mitchell can ball, but having a healthy Rosemy Jack-Saint, Kearis Jackson, Blaylock, Meeks, and the additions they have made in recruiting will more than suffice. Oh, and they also have the best tight end room since the changing area backstage at the last Victoria's Secret model show. Add the built-in motivation to a roster that continues to fill more holes than Shia LaBeouf, and Georgia's going to be dangerous again this year. Remember, I said that. I'm going to bring in David Cohn, the guy who will clean your chimney out in the 1880s.
Not for free.
Over here to my right. Not for free.
Not for free. Of course not.
But Cohn, I'm not saying it. I picked Georgia to win it last year.
You did. And they did.
I think they're going to make the playoff, but I think you're going to have Bama and Ohio State in the national championship game. But remember last year going into it, we talked about, hey, with the weapons they have, with Monken, they're probably going to open up the offense more. It's going to look a little freer, kind of making that transition that Nick Saban made when he brought in Lane Kiffin and some of these other guys where it wasn't just defense, run the ball, special teams, let you beat yourself. I think we're going to see that version of Georgia's offense this year, a little bit more spread out. I think you're going to see some more 10 personnel. And look, James Cook was really good. And I know Blaine thinks he was fantastic, especially catching the ball in the backfield, third down. But this year's Georgia team, do you think it's going to be kind of a flip-flop from last year's team, a little offense-heavy with the defense being good enough?
Possibly, and I'm excited to see just because I do think that offense will take another step forward. Like what Blaine and I were trying to break it down earlier, right? And I think, look at just start at the quarterback position with Stetson Bennett. First of all, not only do you get another season under his belt, and anytime you get one of those cerebral type kids who has another year and a national championship under their belt, they're going to play better football, in my opinion, and also doesn't have to look over his shoulder wondering whether or not he's going to be the starting quarterback. So you can just start there, and then the weapons are going to come down into place, and we're going to break it down here in just a little bit. But just from a 30,000-foot view, we were talking earlier, okay, one is Georgia a one-hit wonder.
Not close.
They're going to be a problem at the highest level for a long time, especially if the desire to coach in the NFL never develops for Kirby Smart, right? Like if he wants to be a college coach for the rest of his career.
Which I don't see it.
I think he's going to be a college coach,
Well,
right?
I think he learned from Saban.
I
think you look at your mentor and you say, okay, you went to the NFL. I know you weren't there for long, but you can't run an NFL team with the type of hands-on, full control that Nick has at Bama, that Kirby has at Georgia, because, look, you have a GM, you have an owner, you have guys that you answer to. Kirby Smart's not, you can say what you want, Kirby Smart's not answering to anybody, especially now that he won the Natty at Georgia. It's Kirby Smart. That's Lord Vader. When it gets done, the emperor's gone. He makes the decision.
And you're in a recruiting hotbed. So if he remains a college coach, he's going to remain at Georgia, then there really is no ceiling to how great they can be. So one-hit wonder, please don't make me laugh. Will they repeat as national champions? Probably not, just because it is so difficult to do. And you look at what Alabama's coming with, and you look at what the Buckeyes are coming with. But it is possible that should excite Georgia fans too. And if you can do it while flying under the radar, I do think they're going to be a little bit better on offense. And then as far as defensively, they are going to reload. I mean, are they going to be as good as last year? I don't know, but do they even need to be able to win the national championship? We're going to find out. You want to talk about their offensive pieces a little bit, right? Like, do you think they're going to be as good on offense?
No, I don't. I think
You don't?
I think they're going to open it up a lot more because they have to. They didn't have to do that last year, but this year they're going to have to do that. I wouldn't say they're going to be better this year.
Okay.
I mean, you look at the pieces they lost. I know George Pickens didn't play most of the season with that knee injury, but George Pickens was a first round. I mean, my opinion, receiver. If he stays healthy that entire year, he'd be talked with the Jameson Williams of the group. I mean, your tight end room is phenomenal. We'll see with Tariq Gilbert. I mean, they're going to hone in on the tight ends more after just the performance and the guys you have there. But you lost Trey Burton to Bama. I mean,
Jermaine Burton.
Yeah, and you lose Cook to the league. I don't think they'll be better. I still think they'll be good, but I think they're going to have to be a different offense here with a different philosophy because you're not going to lean on that defense as heavy as you could. We saw one of the best defenses Georgia's ever had, not even Georgia, but in college football in a long time. So no, I think they'll be more productive. I do think that because
but out of necessity.
Out of necessity, exactly. But I don't think they'll be more talented.
Well, here's my problem with that. Yes, you're right. They did lean on that defense last year, but it was a mixture of leaning on that defense and injuries. Georgia was decimated on the outside by injuries. Tariq Gilbert isn't a guy that you put on the end of the line of scrimmage every play in 12 personnel, or you get an ace. You can put Brock Bowers out wide. You can put Tariq Gilbert out wide. Now, Darnell Washington, who's a converted tackle, that's your big kind of bully. So we can't look at Brock Bowers and Tariq Gilbert as just big H-backs or guys that are only guys that can put their hand down and run the slip and slide and try and bully the linebacker to get open in the middle of the field. But when I look at Georgia, Kearis Jackson's back. That they were so beat up. Dominique Blaylock is back. Meeks is nice. McConkey's nice. I can go down, look at who they signed. Adonai Mitchell stepped up in the national championship game last year on the biggest stage, and that's not including any of the guys they signed. Then you look at running back. James Cook was good. He's an NFL player. Milton, NFL player. McIntosh, NFL player. The Branson kid they got is going to be nasty. You return 3 of your 5 offensive linemen. Losing Matt Luke did hurt, but acting like Georgia, you return your quarterback. Acting like Georgia is not going to be better offensively with a system that's a little more spread out, with having more weapons. They will have more weapons on offense this year than last year. Hell, they have more weapons than Ukraine right now, like when you look at them on offense. So I just don't see how you...
They had all these guys last year, like the guys you just...
They were beat up,
They had all these guys last year with the guys that graduated.
They were hurt.
Pickens and Cook. McConkey played.
Yes, and he balled.
Yeah, I mean, Burton played. Adonis played. I mean, like they had these same guys last year.
But Blaine,
with the add-ons that just got drafted.
Blaylock was hurt.
But that doesn't make them more talented than the guys that have. Hell, George Pickens was beat up half the year last year and still went in the first round. They had the guys on top of the guys last year. Now, these new guys did well, but you're not getting back the productivity that you're losing. George Pickens has a fact to be a number 1 wide receiver.
He didn't play any last year, really.
He played when it mattered.
He didn't play a lot, though.
He played when it mattered.
If you're going to tell me you're as talented when half the guys are hurt on the sideline than when they're healthy, I don't know what you're smoking, but that's some good stuff.
Name the guys that were hurt last year.
Blaylock, Kearis Jackson.
Kearis played.
Kearis was hurt on and off.
Kearis Jackson played football last year.
Tariq Gilbert wasn't part of it.
Wasn't part of it.
Okay. Brock Bowers was a freshman. We know he's the best tight end.
There's no way Brock Bowers, from a productivity standpoint this year, he's going to be the main guy that they will focus on.
And that's going to help the other guys.
I know, but
that's going to help.
It got to the point where it's like that last season, but the other guys were still the other guys on that team last year with better players who just got drafted.
Stetson Bennett didn't take a snap in the offseason, dog.
Yeah. I understand the Stetson Bennett. I understand that. But I still think if you compare this Georgia team, this Georgia offense to last year's Georgia offense, it wouldn't be a more talented offense. It's going to be a different offense. It's going to be more productive because you're going to have to be more productive because you don't got Nakobe Dean or Jordan Davis on these guys on defense that were absolutely basically just mowing down offenses.
So your argument is that this Georgia offense is not as talented as the one last year, but they're going to be more productive?
Yep.
Just out of necessity.
Yeah, exactly. Because the defense, that makes sense.
I think the whole team is going to play with more confidence because they finally gotten that monkey off their back. And not only did they win the national title, but they went through Alabama to do it. And you remember we talked about this a lot leading up to the national championship last year about how Kirby was just hoping that Cincinnati didn't upset Alabama, right? Because he wanted another shot at them to go through them. I think that will mean a lot for them this season coming in because you're not going to deal with any complacency that maybe a normal national title winner will have to deal with. Another thing as it relates to offense versus defense, last year they were able to win the national title with having one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen, and the offense was just efficient. How cool would it be for them, because we always talk about being able to win in multiple ways, if the defense does slip, but the offense picks them up this year and they're still able to be as productive?
Well, again, it just shows you, malleability and football's cyclical, and the way rosters work when you have 85 guys on scholarship. And this is why Nick Saban is the greatest, and Kirby knows this, and they never lose too much at once, but when they do, they have an answer for it. You may have lost a couple guys on the defensive line, but man, that offensive line's bringing back. They stack it and they tier it. That's why I make the argument of the transfer portal now has thrown a lot of that off. It's made it so much harder to be able to sit here and look at the percentages and say, all right, we lose this guy in 2023, we lose these guys in 2024, 2025, here's who we need to recruit, here's how we need to supplement it. Now, all of a sudden, with the transfer portal, you could lose an entire position group, not to graduation or to the NFL, but mostly to the transfer portal. I'm interested to see what's the Booster Club say, Blaine. Hey, if you like that content, go ahead and subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, String in a Cup. As long as you're listening, we appreciate you. Go subscribe now. It's Cranic Company.